Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the Parents Survival Kit, from surviving to thriving in your household. My name is Gene Schwalen. With me, I have my beautiful bride, Dr. Sonia Schwalen, pediatric psychologist expert, national certified school psychologist. Today, we are going to talk about self-care. And that's a big thing, self-care. We talk about it. We are in the mental health field. Dr. Schwalen has a team of clinicians and experts in different areas. And so one thing she preaches is self-care. When you're dealing with behavioral health, mental health, it's very important to make sure you're taking care of yourself so that when you are in front of clients, that you have everything you need to be able to really help them through what they're going through. So a big question is, what is self-care? What does that mean?
So I've actually been really thinking about, how we're going to talk about this term today, because I think even in the mental health field and even with my own team, I myself am guilty of this. We tend to use the term self-care very loosely. And so to really pin it down and find a way to think about it and define it, it was just an interesting, challenging prospect for me today. Everything that I teach with parents and families is all about being proactive. And really, when it comes to behavior management with our children, even thinking about ways to implement discipline, like you mentioned, but in a way that teaches our children to be self-disciplined rather than us, providing punishment or consequences. So by creating structure and routine in our child's day and being consistent in the way we parent them, they inevitably start to learn self-discipline. And so I've really been thinking about, this is actually a very parallel process for parents as well. What I mean by that is parents who engage in self-discipline end up being much better at taking care of themselves.
Makes sense.
So self-care is not, what I think. So what actually for you, what comes to mind before we even started hanging out, as a married couple, and you got all this exposure
Before
to
I was with an expert psychologist.
That's right. What did you used to think self-care meant?
Self-care was going on vacation and having a day at the spa, getting a massage. It was, just something that you just don't do very often, something very special, like a special treat.
Okay. And I think that is really what a lot of people think about when they think about self-care. I think that's very common.
And I love self-care.
I think all of us would if we got to do it more often, right? That description of self-care is like a luxury. It's like self-indulgence. It's every once in a while. It doesn't imply the self-discipline that I'm talking about. So even when we talk to other mental health providers about it, I've heard many of them say things like, well, today's my self-care day. I'm going to go ahead and take a self-care day. And they may do that once every quarter or once every 6 months. And if they're really only engaging in self-care once every few months, and it's just this one special day, right, out of the work week that they've decided to take off, I would almost argue that that's not really self-care either.
Absolutely. And we find that also when we're interviewing new prospects that come onto the team at NextSTEPS. One of the big questions that are always asked is, what do you do for self-care? Because we are big believers in self-care, and you're going to find out what that really means here shortly. But really taking care of yourself in different ways, and what does that look like, and what type of activities or hobbies do you actually participate in a regular basis for that self-care. And it's funny because, self-care really is a mental health term. And even when we ask mental health providers who may have even years of experience in mental health, when you ask them, what do you do for self-care? There's a big, long pause, and they think about it, and then they may say, well, I watch Netflix, or I exercise, or I may read. But it's that big, long pause and them having to think about, what do they really do for self-care? If you are really engaging in the true meaning of self-care, it should come to mind right away. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I think it's part of us being self-disciplined during each and every day, and then we can understand what we're actually doing to take care of ourselves. So I want to just kind of throw out some different examples of what self-care really is, because I think, that self-indulgence or that very luxurious definition is just so common.
That type of ice cream at Netflix, one night a week.
Right. And, you also want to think about that, because Netflix or just binge watching episodes, a lot of people will say that's my self-care. At the end of the day, I'm able to escape into my shows and I like to watch them. And, and so I think people will say that because they almost perceive that to be a way of zoning out, or, like I said, escaping for the day and kind of turning things off. I think the only way to determine if that's true self-care is to really think about, well, what's actually happening, like during those TV shows, how long they go on for, is someone actually shutting it off at a good time and getting enough rest? So all that to say, self-care really is a discipline.
Well, it's caring for yourself. And when we talk about, going on vacation and having that spa treatment, you are caring for your body, for yourself, for your mental, state of mind. I was thinking about this also, preparing for this episode, or thinking about what are we going to talk about in this episode. And I thought about driving a car, which we do regularly, daily, right? And if we don't stop and get gas and take that 10 to 15 minutes at the gas pump for our car when it needs it, our car shuts down and is no longer effective. And I think it's really the same thing for us. If we don't take time for self-care, true discipline in self-care, then we don't have the energy or the fuel that we need to do what we need to do.
Yeah. And so I love that you said that, because you're talking about taking time for self-care, which almost, again, implies like it's this very elusive thing or this special thing that might be out of reach, and we have to make it happen in a way that we even block it off on our schedule. And what I'm here to say today is actually we can make this happen every day, all day, with even just the small decisions that we are faced with on a regular basis. So examples, okay? And when you think about self-care, I want you to think about, we're so busy parenting our children that there's no one really around to parent us anymore. And so we're left with that task for ourselves. In this definition of self-care, you are your own best friend. You are the person who has to care for you so that you are able to care for your children and be a more effective parent, okay? And so things that we tell our kids every day, eat your vegetables, drink enough water, take a shower, go to sleep on time.
Brush your teeth.
Yeah, get enough rest, right? These are things that we're actually faced with.
And 60 minutes of play.
On a daily basis, right?
Daily.
That's right.
Play 60. Come on, let's go.
What? I don't even know what you're talking about
That's
now.
the Michelle Obama initiative that she started a while back.
Yeah.
Play 60.
So what I'm talking about, like with self-care, the daily examples, the self-discipline, it is turning that show off, not watching another episode during your binge watching, period, because that if you do, you're not going to get your 6 to 8 hours of sleep. It's going and putting yourself to bed, turning out the lights and laying down in your bed versus, falling asleep on the couch. Doing the things that you would do for your own child, but doing those things for yourself. So it's very nitty-gritty, but we are faced every day with nitty-gritty decision points. And if we're able to make decisions where we're taking care of ourselves as a discipline every day, we end up doing much better for our kids and for the people in our lives.
Well, even for ourselves. I mean, if you think about it, when we don't engage in those disciplines for our children, how do our children act? I mean, we have the tantrums, we have, this and that, and just it's crazy. It's pandemonium, right? And it's the same thing for us. When we don't have the self-care that we need, we don't have the energy. We're on short fuses. We blow up at anything. Our kids see that. We're teaching them this is how you react. And if you really think about it, when we binge out on Netflix, and I love to sit at the end of the night, which you already know. I mean, I love to sit in front of a TV and put a movie on and kind of unwind, decompress. And that's okay sometimes too. Don't get me wrong. But if you're thinking about it, that's not self-care. that's decompressing. That's not putting things back into your body or giving yourself energy. It's actually releasing some of those things that, from the stresses of the day. So if we are doing things proactively for self-care, then we can actually handle more and we have more energy to do more.
Right. So going to bed on time is an example of self-care. Another, really good example is just being able to say no to people, and not being worried about how upset you might make them, because you know that if you give your time and energy away to someone else, you're not going to have that time and energy for something else that you could be doing, maybe for yourself or for your family or for your children.
Well, that's very important too, because one thing I've taught business owners across the country for years, and even all of our team members at NextSTEPS is there's all kinds of time thieves out there, right? So there's time thieves everywhere. Your phone's a time thief, email's a time thief, social media's a time thief. You have all these time thieves, and we have to learn how to actually navigate those and be aware of those. And you said saying no, and that's one of the key factors to anything. When you say no to things, in fact, Warren Buffett said it best. He said, the difference between successful people and very successful people is that very successful people say no to almost everything. And that's really key, because if you think about it, when you say yes to somebody pulling you here or pulling you there or this or that, when you're saying yes to those things, you're ultimately saying no to other things that are probably more important based on things you have planned in your family and your goals and whatnot. So saying yes as saying no to things you really care about. So think about that also.
Well, and with regard to saying no to other people, if they're pulling you in different directions, it's also being okay with letting other people take care of themselves, right? So as parents, we have the responsibility to take care of our children and to take care of ourselves. And I don't think enough people really hear that enough. Our responsibility as parents is to take care of our children and to take care of ourselves. And that should be really the priority. So allowing other people to take care of themselves is something that a lot of people have to wrap their head around. There's so much involved in that. Being okay with saying no, wondering if the friendship might suffer if you say no. I mean, there's just so many thoughts that go through people's minds when it comes to having the courage to set boundaries and actually just say no. And there are ways to do that. I'm not saying be cold-hearted or rude. I am saying think through what your ultimate responsibilities are, and then be okay with just being assertive and saying, I would love to help you, with that situation. I think right now I need to just spend a little bit more time with my children or at home, or I need to get to bed early, so I need to end the phone call right now, like whatever it might be, but being able to be okay with taking that space for yourself.
Well, and it comes down to just doing it in a positive way also. If we don't take care of ourselves, we don't have energy or the proper energy for anybody else either, whether it's our children, our spouse, friends, neighbors. We are called in our faith to be there for people and to, always be available in certain ways. And we are. So we make that a priority in our lives. But there's also boundaries there, as you mentioned. So the self-care, having the energy to be able to do that for others is very important. But also being able to model that for other people is very important. I mean, I think about, my own dad, as you know, he makes it a priority. It's a pride thing. It's like, I guess it's just a pride thing to where he makes sure he answers the phone anytime somebody calls him, no matter who it is. He may not even know who it is. I mean, he's made comments to where I even answer the phone even if it's a telemarketer. I'll answer the phone and whatnot. It's a pride thing, and he hangs his hat on that, and then he gets upset whenever I don't. So it's okay to unplug. If I'm at the dinner table with my family, my phone's not there, I don't answer the phone call. If it's an emergency, I will find out here pretty shortly, but it is what it is. I unplug, we unplug, and that's okay. I can't answer every phone call. I will not do that, because then I'm not doing the things for me.
Right. And so that's such a real life example. I mean, it is. It's your real life example. And it's a good one. I'm so glad that you brought it up, because it keeps things real, right? So we all struggle with family relationships and feeling obligated, even like the guilt and the pressure that other people might put on us because we're trying to set up boundaries. One of the things that I think a lot of people need help with when it comes to setting up boundaries is being okay with putting everything on the table, So I think it's very scary to put everything out there on the table, but I still say that it's something that I highly recommend. So, for example, in a family situation like this, to navigate, what I mean by putting everything on the table, to navigate that would be, hey, I noticed that you pass some comments whenever I don't answer the phone, and you always want me to understand that you answer the phone every single time, no matter who it is. I understand, or I think that it's important to you to answer the phone because you continue to let me know, but can we just talk about that so that you don't take it personally if I don't answer? Let me tell you where I'm coming from. So to go like head in and address it directly, but still in a very respectful and kind way, is part of being okay with letting other people take care of themselves.
Well, and it's also part of modeling exactly what your beliefs are, which could be a good thing as well.
Yeah. So other examples, okay, of what self-care looks like. So, I said, what do we do with our children? We ask them to eat their vegetables and get enough rest and to brush their teeth and all of those things. Those things apply to us too. It also means, maybe saying no to that second drink because it's probably not going to help you feel very good the next day. And for some people, it might mean saying no to drinking altogether. Because going out and being social and partying on a weeknight may not be in their best interest. So it's really, the temptations are there, the opportunities are there to kind of veer off what we know is in our best interest, because sometimes you do just want to have fun, or maybe it's not all the time that you get asked, on a Wednesday night to go out to dinner with a couple. And so to really plan those things out, to look at your schedule, to make sure you're making decisions that are not just good for your children and your family, but also that are really good for you, because you are ultimately the person that has to take care of yourself with every single decision point that you have throughout the day.
And that makes perfect sense. So let's talk about really, what is self-care? What are some things we can do for self-care? How do we get into self-care mode? Because it's not, as we talked about, it's not a weekly thing. It's not a monthly thing. It's not a quarterly thing. It's not a once-a-year vacation, spa thing. It's really a regular daily thing. And actually, in some cases, it's actually multiple times during the day. That 15-minute stop at the gas pump to refuel type of thing, it can be a several times a day thing. So let's really talk about that a little bit more. Some things that we do for self-care. Myself, I like to play tennis on Tuesday nights with the guys. So that's kind of a self-care thing. That is a weekly thing, but that is self-care. That's my outlet. So instead of going to the bars or going out to dinner or having happy hour, that's kids go to bed or close to going to bed, I go play tennis. I'm getting some physical exercise as well. I really enjoy it. I get some good guys to play tennis with. That is a form of self-care on a weekly basis. We look at when we're planning, basically self-care. One thing that we have to do, we kind of talked about this a little bit in the last session, but coming up with a schedule. So when we have jobs, we have schedules. When we go to work, we have a schedule for the most part, right? We have these tasks, we have these duties. This happens there. Kids go to school. Kids are probably the best example. They have this class at this time. It ends at this time. They have hall. They move from class to class. For 5 minutes or 7 minutes, whatever it may be. And then they have lunch, they have snack time, they have nap time, whatever it may be. They have a very strict schedule. So to really indulge in self-care, one thing, some things that we've learned is that we had to create an actual, really just hardline schedule of what that looks like and what's important to us for self-care and getting it implemented. So what are some things for self-care that are very important?
So when you start talking about, like, we go to work and we have schedules, I mean, I think you were right on there, and we see that with kids too. I mean, we know when we go to work, we have certain meetings or we have our lunch break and things like that. So it's actually just an extension of that, right? So you make a schedule for the family. You're going to talk about what time you wake up so that you can do your morning routine. I'm going to let you speak on that in a minute because I know that's really near and dear to your heart. But morning routines are so important even for the adults in the house, not just for the kids. So, setting yourself up to get up earlier than the kids do, just so you do have some of that time in the morning. And then building a schedule for the children. Like, what time do you expect them to wake up? What time is breakfast? What time does everybody need to leave the house? And you're not just organizing it for the kids, because we're so good at that. We're so good at, well, the kids have to be here at this time, or they have this certain practice over here on this day. And so we're running ourselves ragged. And the reason that happens is because we forget that we also need a schedule as well.
That's right.
We also need to build in our meal times, and we need to build in our bedtime, and we need to build in our showers and things like that. And so when you're sitting down to build the schedule for this school year, because it's right here upon us, don't leave yourselves out.
Yeah, that's very important. One thing I like to tell people or ask people is, what would it sound like if you were to wake up in the morning and you had 20 minutes to yourself? You could just meditate or be in prayer or read the Bible or whatever it may be, just 20 minutes to yourself as soon as you wake up. And then after that, you've got 25 minutes to do a morning workout, go for a walk, whatever that looks like, treadmill. You can put on some great music. You can put on a great podcast like the Parent Survival Kit, or you can unplug completely. And then after your workout, you take a quick shower, and then you make this wonderful breakfast, this egg omelet with all your favorite ingredients. You've got, some strawberries and blackberries and blueberries there, as some fruit on the side. What is that? What would that sound like to you? How does that sound? And people are like, man, that would be amazing. It's like, you can have it. You can do it. Now, the question is, what time do you have to get up to make it happen? And that's where successful people thrive. They understand, if I want these things, there's a price to pay. So I may have to go to bed earlier. And that's really what it comes down to. People need to figure out what is most important to them. And once they decide what they will not do, then they can act with vigor on what they ought to do. And that may be adjusting their schedules. I know that before you and I got married, I was a night person. Getting up at 5 in the morning was insanity. What is wrong with you? I don't get it, because you did, right? But then I shifted, and I realized, okay, with other responsibilities, back then I could do that. I could stay up later and wake up a little bit later, and that's okay, because I would do my workouts in the evening times versus the morning time. Now with 4 kids running around, after the kids go to bed, man, I am too tired to do a workout. We have some friends that do that, and that's great. Some people are like that, and that's okay. But for me, man, I'm not doing a workout after the kids go to bed. I'm ready to unwind, Netflix it out, and go to bed and wake up early. So it's really figuring out what is important to you and putting those priorities, in motion. And then from there, you can develop a schedule. And working together with your partner and your spouse is also going to be important to figure out how to work together. Because there's a lot of times to where, I've got to work late tonight, or you've got to go to work earlier tomorrow. And so we have to be flexible with schedules, but we can do that because we have a schedule, and working together helps promote self-care for each other.
And so that's another part of this discussion. How do parents engage in self-care when they are part of a family and they are running a household? So this is a multi-layered discussion. I think we're at that, like the beef of it, the meat of it, right? That communication between the parents is so important. Once you get that schedule in place and you remember to include yourself in that, is then to discuss it on a constant basis, and I always recommend, I said this last week, parents, you're running a little business when you're trying to make your household run smoothly. And so as the founders of the company, right, or the managers of the house, you need to have daily meetings. And I usually recommend that meeting happen for about 20 to 30 minutes every evening, so that you can kind of check in what went well about today, what do we want to make sure we do differently tomorrow, not just with how we parent the kids, but also to kind of hash out the schedule for the next day. And so flexibility is key. We have to be mentally flexible within the structure of our schedule. So if something changes, like you know that you have a deadline and you missed it because you got pulled away during the day, so that means you have to stay up tonight to get it done, to be able to say, I'm working late tonight, and then, you know, so maybe tomorrow you can get up and make sure the kids get out of the house. Or to be able to say, I'm leaving early because I had an early appointment added to my schedule. You're going to have to take the children to school, and tag team. But then also be mindful of your spouse, the co-parent in the or the co-parent, I guess, taking care of themselves, and help them do that. So if you notice, like, hey, you're doing night after night after night of falling asleep at your desk and staying up late to get work done, or, you know, I've been, you know, doing my morning routine, and I've kind of missed seeing you because I've noticed that you're sleeping in, to be able to say that and in a supportive way, and in a way that, you know, lets your co-parent know that you care about them taking care of themselves just as much as you need them to be present when you're taking care of the kids.
Absolutely. Well, and the one thing that really needs to be, I guess, hit home with is that energy is the most important thing for us to work efficiently, effectively, our bodies to work the way they're supposed to. And that's really the key. So when we're not doing the things that we need to be doing, we're never going to have the energy. And what people don't really understand is that, you know, that 2-hour task, yeah, I got these things knocked off my to-do list, but these things took twice as long. And you may not even realize that because you don't even have the energy that's normal for you. When you have more energy, you get things done more efficiently.
So I think that working together is key, right? So the parents need to just keep an eye out for each other, and then make sure that when you're faced with those decision points every day, you're making the decisions that are in your best interest.
Absolutely. If you think about it, we talk about a routine. We have a daily routine right now. No matter where you're at in your life, with your families, with your household, with your kids, we are all in a routine. What routine is it? Is it the routine that we're chasing our tails every day and we're trying to just survive? Or are we in a different routine where we're actually thriving? And so it comes down to a decision. Where are we at? What do we need to do to fix it? Let's communicate. Let's come together. And it's not going to be easy sometimes. I mean, when I shifted from being a night person to a morning person, it was a struggle for a couple of weeks. But after a couple of weeks, it was easy. And now it doesn't matter how late I stay up. If I stay up late for a project, I still get up in the morning early no matter what. I mean, it just becomes just normal practice. Our bodies get used to it. So one thing that I teach business owners and even our team members is when we're trying to do a shift in kind of what we do or what we want to do, where our goals are at, thinking about your future self, thinking about where you're at right now. Do you like where you're at right now with your family and your kids? Are you spending enough time with them? Are you really enjoying life for all that it really has to offer? Because life is short. You know, we only have so much time on the day. We talked about time thieves. So thinking about your future self, your family, where you could be at, and that will help you turn the TV off, get off the couch, get some exercise in, have more energy, and be more productive in a shorter period of time so that you have more time for the things that you really care and love.
And so something that I want to leave everybody with, just to kind of piggyback off of what you just said, you know, when you're imagining your future self, that will help you like turn the TV off, right? I always leave clients with this phrase, you never actually regret. No, hold on, let me think that through.
I know what it is.
What is it?
It's about exercise. You never regret exercising. You always regret not exercising.
Right. And so exactly. Thank you. So you took the words right out of my mouth. You can apply that to anything, right? So you never regret turning the TV off. You'll always regret not doing it. You'll never regret getting to bed early. You'll regret that you didn't do it. And so it's just a real simplified way of thinking about things, but it has to do everything with what you want your future self to be.
Absolutely. And sometimes it takes talking to somebody, a professional, to really figure out what's really important to you, to really kind of dig in and understand you and whatnot. So we're always here to help. We really thank you guys for tuning in today. Our next episode, we're going to dive into to more of the kids and what we can do to help our kids in different areas. So we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you again, and have a great day.